Holy cow, John Zanis.
Goodness, Nick.
Dude, are you kidding me?
Yeah, I mean, welcome everybody to the Garden Report. Everything sucks edition. I mean, look, we did this a few days ago, and we talked about this not being a certainty, but I mean, man, that escalated quickly. This Horford thing, catching everybody up. He opts out of his deal, which everybody knew, with a $30 million. Sure, yeah, team-friendly deal, no problem. He wants to be back. He loves it here, rah-rah. And then bang, Bullpet drops a bull bomb. Yeah,
as usual, what is coming. I mean, that's good, well sourced, and
yeah,
we had heard the rumors earlier today, and it's just, how do you turn down that kind of money if you're Al? I mean, yeah. I'm hearing well over $100 million.
Sure. So I mean, look, that's what it is. I mean, the instant reaction, I think. I mean, and we'll get into it. The instant reaction is going to be, Kyrie blew it up. It's all Kyrie's fault. And Danny blew it up, and Danny misrepresented or misunderstood things. But the one thing I'll say here is he drew a line. This is what Horford's worth to us or to me, which is probably, as everyone had said, 3 and 60. And Horford, in a total non-tampery way, finds out he can get 4 and 100 plus. So that's it. Ball game. That's it. More money out there.
Can't blame Horford. Can't blame Ainge. Yeah. And I honestly think, I feel like it's almost as if Kyrie leaving, this could have still happened if Kyrie stayed, because if you're Al Horford at the end of your career, you want to stretch it out as long as you could. I don't know what their relationship was like, but it never seemed like it was like peaches and cream, right? So I don't think this is related to Kyrie, other than the fact that Kyrie immediately took them out of contention by not only leaving, but by ghosting on his employer, which I don't want to get into a Kyrie bitch fest, but I think that Al Horford at his age has to take as much money and extend as long as he could. I'm just hoping that somehow they come to some sort of so if a team is going to go out there and offer 4 years to Al Horford over $100 million, let's say make up a number at $125 million, whatever. All right. Now that team is most likely, John, not going to be contending for titles this year. That's my opinion.
No, I don't think so, because you have teams right now that have space. I'm seeing, and again, I'm not doing the math all across the board. We don't have. This is an instant reaction podcast here, so. I mean, I've seen it out there that Clippers have enough room theoretically to get Leonard and Horford if they wanted him. This is a pair with
at
another,
that money.
Yes, at whatever it is, in that range, the 25 to 30. I mean, look, if the Celtics were 20 and that's not good enough for him, that's what you're looking at. You're looking at somewhere in that 30. The teams that have money to burn will fit him in with somebody else. And bring in two guys. You bring in your star and your veteran leader into a team that's already, doing well, and that's that. So, I mean,
I'm on this Houston kick. I just feel like they're in sore need of leadership.
Yeah, whatever it is.
In their locker room. You know what I'm saying? I know sign and trades are almost impossible today, but it just feels to me like there's something.
Yeah.
It feels to me like if Ainge and Horford, we both know for a fact, have a great relationship. So if Al wants to go somewhere and contend, if the Clippers are making that kind of an offer, hell, I can't blame Al. I'd go too. All right, you go and play for Doc, and Kawhi's there if he goes there in a situation that, it could compete in the West. But if it's a bottom dwelling team, why wouldn't Al go to Danny and say, get me as close as you can, and then if you have to, trade me somewhere to a destination that can contend now, which Houston would fit right in that mold. I don't know if the money works. That's my problem. I'm not Keith Smith. I'm not Danger Kurt. I don't know how the cap works.
Sure. So, I mean, that aside, let's just take it back to where the Celtics are right now, which is, I mean, you could go in a million different ways here, but the immediate reaction is just that they're effed in a big way, because you could talk yourself into, fine, Kyrie's gone. Let's see if the kids loosen up, have fun with Al there as the anchor. With Al there as the anchor and the veteran leader and the defensive presence and the glue guy and this and that. So you don't have that. You've just got whatever you've got. Now things get really interesting, and Ainge has to get really creative. whether there's, you're using that money to try to bring in people. Maybe you're trying to take on other teams' bad assets to clear cap space down the road. I don't really know, but I'd say the instant reaction on Twitter right now is there's a lot of people putting the blame on Ainge for this falling apart so badly and so quickly, and I'm not on that. What do you?
I'm not on that train either. I mean, the reactions though are looking at the reaction of Kyrie, non-news because he hasn't spoken to anybody, but the assumption, the knowledge that he's going to Brooklyn, and the reaction by people on social media. This was almost the opposite. I think fans just took a stake in the heart with Al Horford leaving because everybody knows he loves Boston. Everybody loves Al in Boston, short of Lou Merlone maybe, who I think even learned to love him last year. This is a gut punch, but it also indicates that Ainge, in my opinion, John, is rebooting. I mean, he's I don't want to say
they need
rebuilding.
The cap space. They need the cap space down the road. If you lock up Al for 30, for what he was making for another 4, you are kind of you're not going. It's hard.
You're not going anywhere.
It's hard to go anywhere. It's a salve. It keeps it helps heal the wounds right now, but you're not going anywhere. So I get it, but it's bad. I mean, it's bad. It's bad for now. I think a lot of things have to happen for this not to be bad, and maybe it won't be. But I certainly don't think anybody can take any comfort in the team that they currently have putting that on the floor next year. Whatever that is, that could also include no Morris, no Rozier, and sure, maybe you go again and plug a few holes and bring in some guys that'll kind of keep things going. But I mean, you're basically looking at the hospital Celtics here on the court now for the entire season. It's the Jason and Jalen show.
We're back to 2014, 15, 16, watching kids develop, and only this time you have young players with great potential. So if you're one of those fans that love to watch a team develop, this may be a fun year for you. I think if Celtics fans can just admit to themselves, and maybe you want to wait till after the draft and free agency, but if they can admit to themselves that Danny's looking at a quick turnaround, which I believe he most definitely is, then you have to deal with an off season this year. And maybe that's what I don't know, dude. I'm miffed. I mean, everybody and their brother, of course, is texting and tweeting me because of our relationship with Anna. And of course, Anna Horford isn't saying a word about this. Why would she? So your guess is as good as mine. I did hear that excess of $100 million number being tossed around, and that to me was the worst nightmare. A team come out and really overpay Al, and dude, I cannot blame him. So
yeah, there's no succession plan in place here. That's the problem.
That's the problem.
There's nothing behind it. Like, it might make financial sense. You're going to clear close to $30 million in cap space. You can bring in a guy. Theoretically,
I don't know that it works that way, John.
You're going to clear. I think they can sign a guy, Nick, who's 6 years or less in the league to a max deal. And again, I don't have the full list in front of me on everybody who that could be, but that's what puts you into that sort of position. You've seen, Capella potentially on the trade market.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about Capella.
But, it's making that deal work. So I don't know, but you don't have it right now. But, going back to Ainge, you can't put any of it on him. And I'm not an Ainge apologist. I think every single thing. I mean, you can track this entire thing back to.
Dude, I got to tell you, I got to interrupt you because you brought this statement up last time we did one of these emergency podcasts, and not saying that anyone was listening, although a lot of people did listen. You made this exact same comment, and I've heard all over the media in the last 3 or 4 days, which has basically been Ainge is not Trader Dan the way everybody says he is. But go ahead, make the statement again.
He's not. But in this case, he did everything right. You compiled the assets. You flipped them for the type of things that mattered. Kyrie was absolutely worth the trade, and the Tatum deal was absolutely worth it. Everything that happened up to this point, signing Hayward was worth it. The whole thing, it's amazing. You just trace it all back to everything blows apart. when Hayward snaps his leg in two.
It's just,
and you have to wonder what happens if that doesn't happen, because I mean it completely altered history. It is incredible that what that did both for that year. And then you have the Celtics, who the kids get a taste and they learn to win and they mature maybe even a little faster than you wanted them to, which in return, and then Irving gets hurt and he watches them win without him and he sulks and he pouts, and then the kids got a taste of it and then they came back and they didn't like their new roles and nobody liked Hayward playing and everything got bad. It's incredible, the ripple effects off of that one injury, and you really wonder what would happen now. Whether it's possible you're returning all of these guys right now and trading for Anthony Davis. I mean,
it's just,
I don't know.
It is the turn of events over the last 2 years has been so out of favor with Boston. It's not on the scale of, the late 80s, early 90s with Bias and Lewis, but it's definitely really, really bad luck, because it starts with that pass from Kyrie, that oop from Kyrie to Gordon. Now you bring up Gordon, and I think he's forgotten in all of this because everybody kind of really got impatient in the end with his recovery. But you're going to have, if Gordon Hayward can be 90%, and this is so cliche at this point, but if he can be 90% of what he was, you're going to have a nice trio of Hayward, Brown, and Tatum, and you're going to have an 8-seed team, probably. So 8th, 7-seed team. Or do you tank, John?
You don't tank. I think you're rebuilding on the fly, and you're seeing whether Jason and Jalen are real. I mean, at this point, your best case scenario, and again, you can get creative in a trade. Can you get Beal from Washington, who's got this year and the next, for Hayward and a bunch of picks and maybe something else? Probably not. I don't know. But
Hayward, take him out of the equation, man, until he has a season under him. And next year, his contract expires, I think.
I think right now you're hoping that, everybody loves to play with their friends and the new culture, and that, everybody's pals in the NBA sort of thing. And really what you're hoping is that Jalen and Jason are two of those up-and-coming people where people want to play with them, and that they they evolve, and that they're able. Now they're the ones who you're putting all the eggs into that basket. Can they recruit stars here down the road? You eat it next year. You're back to competitive, but not a contender. Maybe Danny does something super crazy. I don't even know what they're thinking. I mean, when Wick said 2 weeks ago, like we're gonna get creative, but we're gonna get creative with what? What's left to get creative with? I mean, you're outside of the Memphis pick. What do you have now? You've got mediocre draft picks. You've got the Memphis pick, which may or may not be of value next year, and then you're looking at the guys you're currently counting on. You don't have assets anymore. Your assets are your team. That's it.
Well, Wick is trying to save face, but what he's doing is just adding pressure. I got to say before we move on to our last topic, John, BOL had this right, man. Remember we were sitting at exit interviews and they put out the odds and they said Kyrie Irving, but they included Al Horford. And I'm like, why?
As a coin flip. Yeah.
Yeah, why is Al Horford in this equation? He is definitely going to extend. It baffled me, but BOL was ahead of it. BOL's BetOnline, betonline.ag. Go over there. I'm sure there's going to be a whole slew of great futures going out there, or props, whatever, and you're going to have all that interesting jazz over at betonline.ag. Yeah. Place your bet. CLNSmedia.com/win. Use the promo code CLNS50. BOL had it right at exit interviews. The whole media looked at their cell phones when they tweeted that and said, "Why is Al in this?"
Yeah, no, you're right. You and I both kind of raised our eyebrows, like wow, it's almost, they had Al almost at even money to lead. Yep. It was pretty close.
It was close.
So I mean, that's what it was. It was a coin flip, and again, it's just the market is the market, and nobody knew. What it would be, and you also had that indication that Al was just happy here. But I mean, I don't think it's $50 million happy. I don't think it's leaving $50 million on the table happy. So,
I mean, if you think about it, he gets a 4-year deal at potentially 40 or 50 million more than the Celtics could pay him. Well, basically he's paying himself for 1 year of retirement. You can't blame the guy. I don't blame him. I mean, I'm devastated, but I don't blame him. Now, the blame will shift if the Brooklyn Nets become involved in this situation. Is there a situation where do they have money on the cap to be able to bring on an Al Horford and a Kyrie Irving? I don't know, but the narrative all totally changes at that point to, Kyrie and Al. I don't even want to think about it, John.
Yeah, it's truth be told, Nick, and your dog is barking.
You gotta love podcasting. The dog's barking, and it's just great. Go ahead.
I don't particularly care where he goes. I just think it's at this point I'm just looking at where the Celtics are, and it's just not a great roster.
Oh, come on, John Zanis. We would have because
Brooklyn means nothing to me. Brooklyn means nothing to me.
Well, Kyrie means nothing to me, but Al does mean something, and if he goes over to Brooklyn, that would be the worst. Thorn and it would just be so ironic that Brooklyn steals all of Boston's assets after Boston sends Brooklyn back 5-6 years.
Yeah, it's just a gross roster right now. You have to see what it rounds out into. I think obviously the draft 2 days away. I don't know what you want to see here at this point. If the Celtics, if Danny can't swing a deal, are you looking at them just drafting, 3 guys Bol and Kevin Porter and these guys, and then
have to stash them all,
and then just stick them on this. No, you're gonna have to. At this point, you're playing them.
Al's here. You have to play.
What are you talking about? You're talking about Jason Tate. You're talking about starting right now. Tatum, Brown, Smart, Baines, and Horford with a bench of Shemi and Yabu and Time Lord. What are we talking about here? This is not a good roster.
It's laughable. It's laughable. It can't go on. Something has to happen. Danny Ainge, I don't know, man. This may be, we're wrapping up, so I guess final thoughts on this. This may be Danny's one time where he doesn't have something up his sleeve. It sure seems that way, doesn't it? It seems like
it doesn't. No, not to me. Not at all.
No, tell me. Well, explain. Put fans at ease.
No, I'm sorry. You're saying you do think Danny has up his sleeve?
No, I think this is probably one of the very few times since Danny Ainge has been running the team, at least in the last 10 years, where he doesn't have a master plan. He seems to be taken sideways by all the events that have happened over the last couple of weeks, starting with the basic sweep by the Milwaukee Bucks. Basically, they swept them.
Sorry, I would agree, Nick. I'm sorry. I'm with you. I think that's the interesting part in all this. Danny did everything, as we said earlier. I think every move Danny made at every point, and you can argue, and I think it's fair, whether taking a big swing at Leonard was in play, but certainly that's a 20/20 hindsight move. We talked about it on the last pod. You didn't know where this guy was with his injury. You didn't know where his head was at. He just he ghosted San Antonio for an entire year. It was a weird scenario, so you didn't feel great about it. But I still, I take that swing, but fine. Outside of that, every single move was the right move, and you're right. At this point, it's everything comes with a gamble, and every one of those things blew up. The Hayward one in an unforeseen way, Kyrie being a total dick and not being able to be a leader, which there were certainly signs, but it was well worth the risk, and Horford being a total team guy and a selfless guy who wanted to possibly take less to stay. You were kind of counting on all of these things. Hayward not breaking his leg, Kyrie not being as big a dick as you thought, and Horford sticking it out, and then, Sacramento being bad or worse, so that asset would have been better and that pick would have been better, and it ended up not happening. Just a lot of things just didn't happen, and that's it. They were the right moves. But Ainge has kind of sort of cashed in all his chips at this point. There's not much. I don't know. I'm really interested to see. Everyone's hoping Danny pulls a rabbit out of his hat. I don't see what's left at this point. I don't see it.
And everybody I talk to who's close with Ainge, and that sounds cliche too, but everybody I've talked to feels the same way we do at this point. It's just kind of limbo. We don't know what's going to happen, and it's kind of the feeling that Danny is almost out of tricks. But He's the trickster. We'll see what happens. I mean, one thing, my closing thoughts is this. Look, Al Horford will be remembered as a selfless member of the team. I'm not going to do a Sean Grandy, diatribe on how wonderful he is, but he was a great guy. He was very good to our company, and hopefully still will be, and I'm glad he's getting paid. And the one thing that sticks out to me on Twitter is that the tweeters cannot blame the media for running Al out of town. This is a business. This is what happens at times, and it's not fake news. It's real. He is going to get paid, and we could just only hope that Danny Ainge has a master plan that none of us know about.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think so. It doesn't mean
Neither.
It doesn't mean it's doomed. It just means kind of it's just what you just had. If you're a Celtics fan, what you just had ripped away from you at this point, which was just from 1 year, just from a year ago or even 2 years ago, but certainly pre-Hayward, but even heading into last year, a full-blown could be the best team in basketball title contender to you're gonna kind of have to wait and see. You're right back to the middle of the pack. It's a weird feeling for Celtics fans, and the assets treasure trove is kind of tapped at this point. So I mean, there's not. This is what it is. It's a harsh reality for Celtics fans to have to come to grips with. And right now, if you're a Celtics fan, I'm sure you're on Twitter and I'm sure you're trying to figure it out or you're consoling one another, and that's fine, but stay away from Sixers Twitter.
Why?
Because
they're celebrating.
They are just bathing in your tears.
So are the Nets. So
are the Nets. So is most of the NBA. Nobody likes Danny. NBA. Nobody likes the Celtics. The NBA world is bathing in our tears right now.
That's the one thing that's been consistent over the past 40 years, my entire life, is that when the Celtics falter, the rest of the NBA kind of come together to celebrate. And it's not gotten any different with Danny Ainge running the team. And if you are a Celtics Twitter fan, maybe stay away from the Sixers and the Lakers and the Clippers and all those. But I'm sure there's a bottom-dwelling team out there you could go out and find a very worse situation to go hang out and make yourself feel better.
It's all darkness right now. It's sad. It's a bunch of Celtics stands trying to make themselves feel a little better. There's nothing great right now. Doesn't mean it's all going to be bad, but there's nothing great right now. So.
Okay, so here's our closing tips to fans: stay away from Twitter. Definitely stay away from rivals Twitter, team Twitter. Hashtags. Definitely don't listen to Shock Jock Radio tomorrow in Boston. Stay far, far away from Felger and Maz just for a day because it's going to be ugly. And I don't know, maybe go say a novena that Danny has a plan that we don't know about. But for God's sakes, keep the faith because it could be way worse when I say that the Celtics could have a front office that parallels some of the very worst in the NBA. And truthfully, Danny kind of got caught sideways here, but he's still one of the best. And it happened to Pop last year. It happens to the best of them. But I feel like goodness is around the corner. It just may be one season of frustration.
Well, I know you're trying to wrap it, Nick. I have one thing.
Go ahead.
I want to hear your thought on it.
Uh-oh.
No, just your thought. So the narrative all year was that Kyrie kind of blew it up. The kids couldn't get along with Kyrie. And then in the days leading up to this, that Horford was fine coming back without Kyrie. In fact, possibly, who knows, possibly preferred it. We're not sure, but that wasn't necessarily the issue. But now you've got both Horford and Irving leaving, and it's just the kids behind. At what point are people going to start to look at this and say, wait, who was the problem all along? I don't know. I mean, I'm wondering if the narrative shifts at all towards...
It's starting to. So...
Or is it rah, go kids, go Jason, go Jalen, get them? Or are you going to kind of scratch your head and say, man, if these guys just frigging behaved like professionals or a little bit more mature, maybe we could have made it work? I don't know. People are going to be spinning this through,
The spin, John, right now is the Gordon Hayward. What's the difference between this past season, or the majority of it, and the previous season where, I mean, regardless, as much as I really don't like Kyrie Irving, the player, there was a 16-game win streak the previous season led by Kyrie.
Sure.
So, what's the difference? The difference is Gordon Hayward. And in regards to Hayward, I mean, everything I hear about him, my interactions with him, which have been limited, but everything I hear about him from people who are close to him, he's a class act. He's a selfless guy. You've seen his work ethic. I put that blame almost on Brad Stevens, and I don't even want to get into that topic, but anything that's going against Gordon as being an issue for the team, I think it relates to Brad Stevens. That starting him really set the team off on a bad foot. And I really put it in Brad Stevens' lap. So that's one thing this season he's got to fix.
Yeah.
I don't feel you could say Rozier, and Rozier gives us every reason to think that he was a problem because he went on his car wash, as you like to say. And I've been using that phrase all the time now.
Sure.
John.
Yeah. No.
So he went on his ESPN car wash. So Rozier may be in that camp, but I mean, we've seen Jalen disgruntled in good and bad times. So I'm not going to say that that's anything, because Jalen really made a turnaround. And in the playoffs, he was saying all the right things. And as far as Tatum goes, I think Tatum was caught in the middle of a dramatic, swirling, just drama all the time. And I think that starts and stops with Kyrie. So
Tatum was in a tough spot because Kyrie took him under his wing, so he was somewhat
like the Bron situation.
Yeah, he was somewhat beholden to him, but he was also kind of like, I kind of like Jalen, and we're kind of, So no, yep. I mean, your point is a good one. I think Brad. When you're slicing up the blame pie for how this all went down, I think Brad gets a big piece because this is almost like you needed one of those like Major League Baseball managers or one of those like,
yep. You need Doc Rivers. You need Brad Stevens' brain with Doc Rivers.
Yeah,
you need
Doc
the
Rivers,
hybrid of Doc and Brad.
A Ty Lue, a guy who's just going to cater.
Oh, no, not Ty Lue.
No, God,
man. We had him already.
Nobody means that. We don't mean that. But somebody who had an approach that was, catering to the egos of the people who needed ego stroking, and I don't know. This is
a disaster at the level of what, John? What Boston team has maybe the Red Sox during the fried chicken nonsense? I mean, what Boston team has had an utter collapse comparable with this?
I mean, look, we've seen ups and downs during this run too. I mean, the Bruins went from the Stanley Cup to a bottom dweller in a couple of years by making not the right moves. Really. Certainly, the chicken and beer Sox went from on the cusp of making the playoffs to a September collapse to the biggest laughing stock in all of sports in the Bobby Valentine years with 2012. A lot of that was self-inflicted. This was, just a series of really unfortunate events that, like I said, we're going to look to parse, and all the blame out to everybody. And I don't know that anybody's actually to blame. I really do think that this is just shit happened, it just happened. And and again, I don't think Danny did anything wrong. I don't know how Brad could have coached them differently. I mean, we're looking for somewhere to put this. It just happened. It happened.
When it's all said and done, though, the blame game lands at the top. Yeah. So, and from everything I personally witnessed this season and you did as well in press conferences, in interactions with the media, Brad just didn't. I use the phrase deer in headlights. That's not fair because a guy that smart is rarely a deer in headlights. So he did resemble it a lot this year. There were definitely conflicts that he couldn't handle or didn't have experience handling. So, when it's all said and done, at the end of the day, Kyrie may end up being the major villain. He always will be in my mind. But the blame, Danny Ainge is sticking with Brad Stevens as he should. Therefore, Brad Stevens needs to take the fall for what was probably the most disappointing season for Celtics fans since I don't know when. Maybe 89, 90 when Bird came back from the back, or the bone spurs. I don't know.
No, this was pretty disappointing. And Kyrie's definitely going to catch the brunt of this, is coming in and blowing it all up just by not being able to get along. But
I'm not doing the right thing, dude. Like, you don't disappear. Like, you do what Al did. right? I mean, Al's a classy guy. I could get into this all day long. I'm not going to because it's
we're not.
Forever.
We did Kyrie already, and I did.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, Kyrie at some point, I'm not sure when, flipped the switch to off, and it was over.
We'll find out.
And the rest was simply a slog to the finish. Let's just get this over with, and that's that. So I'm not super surprised he's ghosting them. He's made up his mind. He's gone. I mean, we go back to the Ainge press conference a week and a half ago or wherever it was.
Talk about a deer in headlights.
No, I mean he's talking about Irving in the past tense. It was obvious at that point. So this has been over for a long time, and now just got to figure out what's next. So again, I'm eager to see how this kind of shakes out, and obviously draft in a couple of days, and maybe Danny's got something. Maybe everybody feels better in a couple of days. But this is going to be a rough one for Celtics fans. But
I will say, keep the faith. Think back on 2014, the 24-win team, 13-14, to 2015, 16, 16, 17, teams that overachieved and put the Celtics in a position to have talent like Hayward and Irving and Horford on the team if all goes well. So I'm confident it'll happen again quick. And in the meantime, we ain't going anywhere, John. We've been here for 11 seasons through good and bad. So we'll be here to cover it all, break it down, and I'll certainly be interacting and trolling as much as I can on Twitter to get the green teamers riled up, as Felker would say.
Yep.
So
and more draft stuff Thursday, so stick with us. We'll usher in the bowl era.
Oh God! Remember when Manute Bol used to shoot threes?
Yeah.
Like Don Nelson used to encourage. On that note.
Yeah.
Let's wrap this baby up and put a bow on it and throw it in the garbage. And hopefully next broadcast we're talking about something a little bit more positive. So I'm Nick Gelso, CLNS_Nick. He's Xanis. What's your? Do you even have a Twitter handle?
I just kind of follow people. I don't really tweet.
Yeah, you're a ghost on Twitter, man. Yeah. You're like a stealth aircraft. So instead of following John, just follow Celtics CLNS.
That's a better idea.
And we'll catch you after the draft.
All right, guys, hang in there.